Hey folks, this is Chris with Oregon Figs. It's May 27th, 2023. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everyone. So this is a lilac, and I've given you the story on the lilacs. We bought 3 of them in little 1-gallon containers for $5 each. But I had put them up on the other side of the greenhouse behind me, where I have put my Nikita's Gift persimmons in. And I just decided to give that tree a lot more room. So I took the 3 lilacs out, and I think it was probably about February, and I brought them and popped them in ground down here right near the property line. You can see the neighbor has, for the first time ever, tilled his field. This was a rough field. When I first moved in, my field was covered with Scotch broom, which is a non-native invasive species, and blackberries everywhere. And this field was as well. And I took my Kubota 39 horsepower tractor with my Land Pride attachment for cutting, and backed into all these places where there were 10, 15-foot blackberries and such, and cut it all down with my tractor. And he started mowing it, and now he's tilled it, and it's gone from this really rough field, just like mine, to a really, really nice, smooth area. And that's what I did to our property. Anyways, today it's kind of a little discussion on persimmon and how to grow them. So this is a Prok persimmon, which many people have said very good things about. It's an American persimmon, and I believe it's from New York State is where it was first cultivated. And there's the tag. It was from Just Fruits and Exotic out of Florida. And they sell it from time to time, but they sell out really fast. So if you're looking for it, you have to be kind of watching their website. And I was lucky enough to get one. Unfortunately, it was a big tree with, oh heck, that's probably between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch in diameter. But they just hacked it off when they sent it. And that's the way they have to send it, because the tree was just too big. The box would have been very expensive, though. Although I would have been willing to pay extra shipping to get the full tree. So when you cut a tree like that, then you're starting, it suckers out. And you have an option of growing a persimmon as a bush or as an upright tree. So I try to grow as upright trees with my persimmons. I only have 2 of them. I'm very inexperienced with persimmons. And what I learned last year is that this new growth, this new green growth, like most new growth, figs are the same way, very, very fragile. You can just take your finger and push and it will come right off. So you'd never want to use a limb spreader, or you never want to be too aggressive around new green growth. You want to give it a chance to lignify. The issue with the Prok persimmon is that when it lignifies, it gets very, very hard, very fast. And it's not like a fig, which is flexible, where you can move it around. It gets like hard wood, and it's coming out, if it's coming out at a sharp angle, you can't really create a very nice profile for a single stem upright tree. So what I've had to do this year is I'm paying a lot more attention to it. I just weeded around this thing, and you can see little pieces of persimmon. Some of these were up high, some of them were down low as suckers, and I actually think they were above the graft union, so that could have been actual persimmon, because I think the graft union is right down there at the base. But I don't want anything growing down there, so I had to take all this growth off. And that's really hard to do as a grower, because you know that growth is leading to a better root system, because that's just how it works. You get a lot of growth up top, roots start traveling. So I have an option here. This is what I've left. I've left myself more than one option. The best and strongest of the growths is right there. But it isn't as upright, and it won't be as easy to make morph into the original tree. This one right here that's going straight up and down, it's not the biggest one, but if I ended up making that my central leader, I could just slough these off with my finger and it would come out very close to the same angle as the original tree. But once again, I'm not going to mess around with this too much. I've taken off a ton of growth down low. Now, like I said, that was really hard to do. But I'm going to try to let it lignify a little more than this because it's really fragile. Once again, don't use limb spreaders. Don't be overly aggressive around new growth like that. It'll cleave right off easily. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to let it go a little bit further. I'll let it start to lignify a little bit, and then I will remove all the growth except for one upright shoot. And I'm going to try to get this to become a huge tree because this is a good spot for a tree in my yard. It's near enough the property line. I would say it's probably 25 feet from the property line. It's quite a distance from these lilacs. Long distance from this red bud. Strong distance from this pear. And a pretty good distance from this LSU Huye I just put in. So I want a big, bold, majestic tree. And I'll need some luck. But I'm trying to make it work, and I'm trying to train it. Just very difficult in the beginning because you're taking all this growth off, and you know, it's a labor of love. So I weeded it, and I just put a container, about a half a container this size, that's a 2-gallon I think, of composted steer manure in it. And then I'll just top it with this fir pebble bark, and that will be a mulch layer that will help hold the moisture in. So that's the Prok persimmon. The other tree is kind of special. We're going to walk up to that. It was given to me on Father's Day as a Father's Day gift from my son. And sometimes trees take on a different meaning when they have a history attached to them, and it's a family history. So I'm really happy to be growing this tree on our property down here. And it started as a really tiny, tiny tree. So I had to grow it out in pot a couple years. And then last year, I was taking all this growth off. You see those cuts on the lower area? That was hard to do. And I got it to the point where at about the 4-foot level, scaffolding started forming. And I said, that's okay. I mean, technically, I could take that off, but it's such an upright scaffolding. And I'm not really concerned with light penetration. These trees get a lot of light, and it doesn't matter if the branches are kind of close together. So I'm hoping that this turns into a big, beautiful tree, but it's really growing up nicely. The problem I had with it was I only had it attached at one point. I only had this attached here to this post, and the winds coming up from the lake were just blowing it back and forth, and it was kind of acting like a parasail because there's so much growth up high, and the actual girth of the tree is still not that significant. You can see down there at the graft union, and that's what I was worried about, is it's going back and forth in the wind that would snap at the graft union. So I brought in another post today, and I supported it from the other side as well. So now when the wind comes, you can see it isn't moving all that much. So you got to look at things. You got to predict what can happen. What's a bad outcome? That would be a bad outcome, because I love this tree. Nikita's gift from my son for Father's Day. Special tree for me. And to me, that's a big part of what growing's all about. How do you find things that are special? How do you take care of them? How do you pass them along to other people when you're gone? And this is a great tree. And this is how I like to grow persimmons, even though I've only grown 2 of them. I like my trees in more of a single stem upright position versus a bush. Personal preference, I get it. Okay, today's a beautiful overcast day, and I'm gonna do my tour of the fig orchard here, and planted a lot of trees this year, moved a lot of trees, did a lot of things that I tell people not to do, not to put little trees in the winter. And I was out here in the 40s digging holes and putting trees in. So I've had fairly good luck because it was mild, and we've had incredibly warm weather here in the last, I think, 16 days. We haven't had rain, and we've had really, really warm weather, but we're still dealing with those overnight low temperatures in the 40s. And that slows down the formation of fruit. Now, we can get bud break in these nice days, and we can get nice green growth on trees, on fig trees especially, but very few are setting double bumps because of those cooler nighttime temperatures. All right, we'll see you on the next one.